Welcome back to Three Men and a Mic with your host Joe Barron, Javier Montemayor, and Gene Belmares. Great show we have today, hot topic of mental health. We've got a good Last Bite segment coming up as well. But let's talk about the week in review. Man, what happened since the last show? What's been going on in Laredo and Texas and all other places?
I think it's weather, a little bit gone crazy.
Yeah.
A lot of rain, a lot of heat, a lot of people get sick. NBA playoffs, of course.
It's amazing to see the Spurs make it back to the conference finals, right?
Yeah.
Pop's got to be proud, and he's sitting out there watching.
Yeah.
Wemby.
Oh my! Once in a lifetime player that we're watching grow up.
That kid's a game changer, man. You know, and I think they need to build around him. They need to, just form the entire team around him. They have some really good players, but at some point they need to give him a break because they're going to wear him out the way he's playing. Maybe next year, but I think it's a good one. We have elections going on right now.
Yeah, you got elections
early
also.
Voting from through Friday, and so it's a very good contested election between Jerry Garza and C.Y. Benavides for county judge.
That's the big race, right?
We have some Republican candidates also, Paxton and Cornyn. It's their elections to watch. They'll change the makeup of the Republican Party.
For sure. Any predictions for Webb County?
Predictions?
Yeah, where do you think it'll land?
I think it's going to be, according to the polls that I've heard, 65-35, Jerry Garza. That's my prediction.
Joe?
Yeah, I think as close as it is, as much money that they both have spent, I think Jerry might have the inside track.
The inside track.
Yeah.
I tend to agree. I'm cautious always because you get on social media and you see the camps going back at each other, and if you're watching it on social media, you tend to fall into one of the camps, and then it becomes an echo chamber because that's all the algorithm's going to feed you is everything that's positive about the one candidate or the other, and so it becomes a self-deafening echo chamber. You can't really tell who's winning until you step back and either look at some polling data or look at it from in my case, I didn't vote in that primary, I voted in the Republican primary, so I can step back and look and have a different view. And I tend to agree, about 60-40, 62-38 in that range is my prediction.
No, it's going to be interesting, and I know both camps have been working really hard. I've seen the South Laredo voters out and about. I've seen the North Laredo voters out and about, but and this is where it's important, that we do not let our voter apathy play a role in the outcome of these elections. We really need to get out there and vote. We really need to push everybody to make some time. Ask your employer. You have a right to go out there and vote. Let your principals know. Let your supervisors know. Let your directors know that you're going to take a little time to vote. There are sites open all over town, and even on election day. They're all open, and you don't have to vote at the site where you reside at like it used to be. You can vote anywhere in Laredo.
Kind of like early voting everywhere, all the time.
Everywhere.
Right? So even the day of.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see. I want to say that maybe 12,500 to 15,000 is the number that's going to turn out. Typically, runoff elections don't bring out a lot of folks, especially we don't have a lot of contested races. But you have this one. This is a hotly contested race, as is the one for the Republicans. The fate of John Cornyn lies in the balance of this particular runoff against Ken Paxton, long-term senator who's been really good to Laredo and has got good ties here from San Antonio. Interesting note, he signed one of your documents?
Actually, yeah, he. So I have Governor Greg Abbott and John Cornyn as one of the. They were on the Supreme Court when I got licensed, and so my license, my state bar certificate that I got after I got sworn in, has John Cornyn, has Greg Abbott, has Alberto Gonzalez, has some old Republicans who were in control. That's how long the Republicans have been in control of this.
That says a lot right there.
Yeah,
Right.
1990.
Might be as worth as a much as a
1997,
Mickey
man.
Mantle card, right?
Yeah, you never know. You never know. But
Put it out on eBay and trade your law license.
yeah, so it's gonna be interesting. So, but yes,
Yeah.
encourage the voters to go out and vote. I think 7,500 to 8,000 votes will declare a winner with that number.
Sure.
So, you know,
So whoever wins will face
that's it.
Talarico, no?
Oh,
Yes, and in the Senate
Senator.
race, yes, against James Talarico, the Democrats' nominee for the Senate.
No, it's gonna
Interesting
be
stuff, right?
Very
gonna be
much,
interesting.
very much so.
Yeah. School's almost over.
Yeah.
Just about
What,
out.
what, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Maybe?
Next week we have graduations on Thursday and Friday. We have United up first, followed by you want to say United South, and then we have United and LBJ. I'm sorry, Alexander's first, followed by United South, then we have
Hey,
United High School.
before we go, one of the things, those United South kids, the baseball players,
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
yeah.
they did very well, man. That
Very
pitcher is that guy is good, man. I think that what they took Austin Westlake
Yeah.
to 3 games.
Yeah. And Austin Westlake being a powerhouse in,
Yeah.
in state
Yeah,
baseball. So.
No, they have D1. They have D1 recruits on the Austin Westlake baseball team right now, and I tell you what, Laredo, the baseball competition that Laredo sends up to these playoffs is top notch.
Yeah.
Man, our coaches are top notch in Laredo. So kudos out to the Panthers, and
Yeah.
and you know, we're looking forward for more things to come from them. So
Yeah.
Laredo's a baseball town.
That's
Yeah,
it.
I believe that. You know, as much as we'd like to be a football town or a basketball town, baseball's our sport.
Yeah.
That's I think we're really good at.
And they're getting them at a young age. I
Yeah.
mean, they got the ball in the bat. I mean, super young. So
Yeah.
those leagues, the Pony League with Richard Rosa is
Yeah,
doing
Richard
very
Rosa's
well.
group doing real well.
You know, the other leagues that are out there, they're doing very well for these kids, man.
Yeah.
so mental health.
Yeah, mental health is going to be a hot topic. We've got some great guests tonight that shed some light on what I believe is somewhat of a broken system. Not just here. I mean, this is something that you see in Laredo, but I mean, you'll see that there's some of the issues that the state and the nation are facing with teen suicide, veteran suicides, those types of things, as folks fall through the cracks of a system that I believe is broken.
It's for me. It's kind of shifted, because when I was growing up, there was not a lot of attention on a lot of that mental health. It was kind of work through it, get through it. But I want to say that for me, since COVID came around, with the uptick of social media, all these algorithms, all these the toxicity that social media brings has helped fuel a lot of the mental health
Sure.
situations that we face as far as our younger generation is concerned. These two individuals have a lot of experience. They bring a lot to the table, and this is Mental Health Awareness Month, if I'm not mistaken. May is and I know that there is the what is it, the 388, what's
988
the
now.
988 hotline now
Hotline.
that exists, and so the city has done a lot to bring awareness. The organizations like Pillar are very instrumental in helping us deal with this growing it's a problem. It's recognizing the mental health situation that
Sure.
many people, hundreds and millions of people, suffer through every day.
They do, and there is no net that catches them all. And so, how do we address that? And that's some of the questions that we're going to be asking our two guests. But we're going to take a short break and thank our sponsors and be right back.
Life is full of great moments, special moments, shared with friends, family, and loved ones. But for some, pain deprives us from fully enjoying these moments. If chronic pain is keeping you from fully enjoying life, there is hope. Hi, I'm Dr. Marta Martinez. At Advanced Spine Pain Solutions, we're dedicated to treating our patients with the most advanced and compassionate care possible. Visit us for an evaluation and let our experienced staff help you get back to living a pain-free life.
We have a 9-acre facility, 200,000 square feet of indoor storage, as well as about 4 to 5 acres of outdoor storage. Pricing is subject to change based on your selection of either indoor or outdoor availability.
Life is full of great moments, special moments, shared with friends, family, and loved ones. But for some, pain deprives us from fully enjoying these moments. If chronic pain is keeping you from fully enjoying life, there is hope. Hi, I'm Dr. Marta Martinez. At Advanced Spine Pain Solutions, we're dedicated to treating our patients with the most advanced and compassionate care possible. Visit us for an evaluation and let our experienced staff help you get back to living a pain-free life.
And we're back. Pretty well tonight. Joining us for this very hot topic, and again, something that we ourselves, Joe, Javi, and I had been talking about is mental health, and it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And joining us from the City of Laredo's Health Department, Program Manager Erica Lopez, and the Executive Director of Pillar, Manuel Sanchez. They're joining us to have this discussion about mental health and the issues that we're facing. One of the questions I hear often, Manny and Erica, is that we're not doing enough, that there's not, and it's not so much awareness, but just how do people get services in Laredo? Where do they go?
If I may, I can tell you just by looking at the mental health landscape in Webb County, within the last 20 years, we have quadrupled the number of providers in our community, and that is still not enough. Because if you look at a national level, it's estimated that 10% of the U.S. population struggles with some form of depressive disorder. If you apply that here in Webb County, we're looking at almost 30,000 people. Those are a lot of individuals to serve, and we just don't have enough providers, not to mention other challenges we face like funding issues, reimbursement rates, things like that when people do have insurance.
Well, you know, Erica, the City of Laredo, I know, has a very large, very active health department, and they do everything from infectious diseases to immunizations, vital records. But this is something y'all are tackling as well, right?
Yes. So in discussion with Dr. Chamberlain, our health director, we've always said mental health is a public health issue. It doesn't discriminate. It affects everyone. And it can be combined with everything else. Sometimes individuals with diabetes start developing depressive symptoms. Individuals who are low in their B12 all of a sudden are having anxiety, and it's not a mental health issue at that point, it is medical. So I think it's important, and I think the health department is very fortunate to have that umbrella where we do cover the medical components, where we do cover the laboratory components to detect what's going on there. And we also have that freedom of, I've always said it, it is very difficult in our community and our culture to have individuals, especially men, come seek services. So what do? We go out there in the community and we offer our services to the individuals. We do have a mobile unit that provides services out in the community. So we're out there trying to get these services offered, trying to get people to come into our door, because we're a very familia-oriented environment where we need to earn the community's trust, and you'll find us anywhere possible.
And I think aside from everything that you guys do, and do it well, it's we need to be vigilant at our own homes. If all of a sudden you see somebody that's staying away from the family, if somebody's always in their room isolated, all of a sudden stops talking. I mean, there's ever since we decided to do this topic, I started diving into things, and you hit it on it's men aren't going to go admit the machismo thing, right? And then some people do go and ask for help, but then they make them feel like if something's wrong with them.
There's a lot of
So
cultural
sensi-
influences,
Ándale, yes.
not just gender
Yes.
influences. And then there's also generational gaps. Today's generation embraces mental health care. The older generations still don't value it. And that's a challenge for us because, at least at Pillar, we've had young people come in asking for services, practically begging the therapist to convince their parents to continue to bring them for the service. So we've seen that paradigm shift where now it's the youth looking after themselves in this area, not so much the parents, because the parents worry about what's going to be said by the youth that's going to be incriminating or damaging for them as parents.
Yeah.
And
You
it
know,
starts with us. I mean, I'm a therapy advocate. I believe everybody should be in therapy, and my goal is to get one family member a year into therapy, and so far it's been successful. But it's about talking about therapy and about mental health at the carne asadas, and openly saying, like, I tell them, like, oh, I'll be there, I'm just leaving therapy. I talked to my 6-year-old goddaughter about mental health and therapy, and she asked me, Tia, what is therapy? And I told her, it's sometimes you have feelings and you have emotions and you can't talk about them. And she told me, I sometimes have feelings and I don't know how to describe them. So it's just opening up and having that, breaking that stigma at an early age. And it's tough with older generations, and I'll do it with my family, and I try my best. But sometimes it's just focusing also on the future. And you've mentioned it, it's the youth as well. So talking about it early.
I think I said it at the start of the segment where it seems to be generational. When I was growing up, it was dealt with very differently. Back then you used to, either, it'll get fixed with the belt, or it'll get fixed with some type of discipline. And,
It was dismissed.
and we didn't realize, for example, I know friends who were ADHD, and a lot of people thought they were just chiflados, and so they were just trying to, and they deal with it with some type of discipline. When you come to find out, now that there was a serious, medical issue going on, but let me ask you this: what is the issue on mental health? What are we talking about when we say mental health? We've had, suicides, we've had, just people
Drug addictions,
shut down,
Sure.
or people just react. And, and unfortunately we have a lot of people who go and commit violent crimes, and they're suffering from some type of mental illness that really don't go detected. Sometimes there's no outcry, there's no signal from them that they're suffering from something. But what is a definition of mental health?
Javi, that's a common misnomer that people associate somebody with a mental health challenge committing acts of violence.
Okay.
People that commit acts of violence, especially like mass shootings, the primary source is typically rage and anger.
Okay.
And wanting revenge because they're frustrated with what's happening in their world, and it's a lack of social connectedness. Those are the two big influencers. Are there underlying mental health themes? Of course, but as human beings, all of us are going to have those challenges, and not all of us are going to go out and commit mass murder. So we need to be very careful how we look at those situations so that we don't paint everybody with the same brush. But I agree with you. There are a lot of people walking around with unaddressed mental health issues that present a challenge in so many ways, and it's going to take a group to recognize that it's a four-pronged approach that's needed. The federal government needs to look at funding, needs to look at regulating systems of service. The state needs to utilize whatever federal funding comes down to make sure that it's earmarked in the areas that need it most. Then communities need to make sure that access issues and provider issues are met so that nobody deals with those barriers. And most importantly, it starts with us, and Erica said it earlier. We need to police ourselves. Self-care is very important, and if we need help, we need to eliminate issues like stigma from getting in the way of us seeking care.
So was it this week, right, in San Antonio?
Yeah, in fact, I was going to have Carla. Carla has a couple of headlines that have been, seen over the last, 12, 14 months that we've kind of picked up earlier today. And you can see, just some of the things that are being tackled across the state. there was a series by CBS News, Kids in Crisis, that was really big on that social disconnection you were talking about. But then there's issues like this, just mental health care and the shortage of providers in Texas, and not just here. I mean, this is across the nation as well. And even here in Laredo, the health concerns for our firefighters who visit traumas every single day of their career. They're out there and they see everything from accidents, overdoses, baby drownings, you name it, and it just impacts them so heavily. So, but yeah, there was one in San Antonio.
The one in San Antonio where the mom started the car on fire with her 2 kids.
Right.
Apparently, she had been visited by police and some social services before she did what she did, right? So I don't know if she refused services. I don't know if why or how it got to that, right? And God rest their souls, right, those kids. But when someone gets called out to a certain address, and it's been recognized as mental health, like when does authority step in? When do you guys when does it take over? Like when do you guys take over in that kind of situation?
And it's unfortunately, I think Manny can attest to this. Laredo, the police department gets the calls for mental health crisis before we do.
Sure.
Way before we do. And we are very fortunate to have a mental health outreach team within our Laredo Police Department.
Okay.
It's a small team. Hopefully it'll grow again because of funding. But those individuals are the ones that will be responding to these crisis calls. We're very fortunate to work very close with the mental health team from Laredo Police Department. And the approach should be, it should be a co-response team, and not just saying Laredo Public Health should be the co-response, but it's a combination with Pillar, with SCAN, with Mercy Clinic, with Border Region, where we need to go out there with these individuals with the police department because they're the ones that are getting the calls.
But let me play devil's advocate for that. I mean, and only because the show likes controversy. I know our audience loves to see us fist fight one of these days, I'm sure. But at what point does that become a danger to those like yourselves and others that would show up? These types of calls have proven to be some of the most dangerous calls police officers make because they can shift and turn on a dime. All of a sudden, you've got someone who's going through a mental health crisis, an episode, and then it becomes either violent or they themselves become a danger to themselves. And so here you have someone who is trained to handle those things, but alongside of them is someone who's probably not trained to handle the physical side of things, as that may turn out. How do you address that part?
Well, I've been a part of many meetings with many of these agencies coming together: police, the mental health authority, mental health providers, emergency clinic workers, law enforcement people, and it's a broken system. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
Because at the end of the day, the individual in crisis becomes the proverbial hot potato. And so police does their part to make sure the individual is safe and no one else is in danger. The mental health authority has a certain response time to come in and do their intervention. The emergency unit that's stabilizing the individual babysits, for loss of better terms, for up to 48 hours before a final act is made. Sometimes it's sooner, but sometimes it takes that long. A medical provider has at least 12 hours before they intervene and do their part. And then sometimes the judicial system gets involved to place that individual. But now you're talking almost 3 days worth of involvement from different entities, and economics come into play because most of these individuals are uninsured or underinsured. So who's going to pay the hospital for their time there? And then you have law enforcement having to pay overtime for the officers assigned to stay by this person's side. Now you're looking at transportation issues, 150 miles in either direction, because Webb County just doesn't have enough resources to care for these individuals. It is a broken system. My hat's off to the law enforcement entities that get involved, to Border Region as a mental health authority who gets a majority of those calls, and the ER personnel that manage the issues. And we can't forget the individual being impacted and his or her loved ones.
There was a time that Border Region, I worked with Border Region on many of these commitment issues that where the mental health was in question of a certain individual. And you're right, Laredo couldn't really deal with them, and so they'd send them over to San Antonio State Hospital.
Right.
I was involved in one at Palmview in the Valley not long ago.
Right.
And you're right, and the system seems to be broken. And what I found was that a lot of these individuals, to deal with some of their mental health issues, would sometimes use narcotics to self-medicate,
Right.
or the use of narcotics would sometimes cause some
Right.
mental health issues. And so it was very difficult for the families as well to go through
Absolutely.
all that.
And in the process, we re-traumatize them. And I feel right now, especially in our climate, it's having law enforcement knock on your door sometimes when you're already in a full-blown psychotic episode or you're paranoid. You're automatically thinking the worst situation. And I think we've had discussions with council as well, with the police department, where we want to use a trauma-informed approach, where we work with the individual, we work with the family to not have to add that burden financially of $3,004 hospital bill just for lab work. And sometimes their trauma comes from law enforcement, it comes from medical. So adding all these components, and unfortunately we used the easiest route. And when I talk to other individuals from other states, it's like, oh, we travel, it's close, 2.5 hours. And they're like, oh, we forget you guys are in Texas. 2.5 hours is pretty close. And compared to the size of Texas, we only have 5 state hospitals.
Really?
Yes, 2 of those are forensic. Our closest is San Antonio State Hospital, which right now it's majority forensic as well. And there is about a couple month wait at the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
And right now, one of the closest hospitals, which would have been in San Antonio, they lost funding. So they let go of 600, 700 employees recently, and that was one of the contract hospitals that Laredo had. So even though this is happening in San Antonio, Laredo feels the impact as well, because that was one of our resources.
And let's not look any further than the substance use crisis we face here on the border, where access to illegal drugs is readily accessible, right? And it's their use rampant, and we don't have any real inpatient care services. SCAN has a couple of programs with some beds. I know the city recently established its own inpatient center, but with limited beds. We're not even scratching the surface when it comes to the need. And here on the border, it's a big problem. We're highly underserved and neglected in that area.
And I will say this, right? I've been fortunate enough to work with some organizations, right? Catholic Charities. My mom ran Bethany House for a lot of years. Withholding Institute, right? So we deal with mental health, homelessness, and all this kind of good stuff, right? I know for a fact that Border Region, Bethany House, Holding, I know that they're all overwhelmed. There's not enough beds, there's not enough space, there's not enough service. Like there isn't. You got Bethany House calling Holding, you got Holding calling Catholic Charities. I mean, and it's for that same person.
Right.
They're trying to find services for that one individual, but no, we have no funding. No, we have no bed. No, we can't because we have no security.
Right.
I mean, it's even if the person reaches out for help,
Right.
for them to get the help, I don't think it's very realistic.
No, and I know I've had conversations with Dr. Viviana Martinez, who's the director of our Roots Recovery Center, and we've discussed it where we have not encountered an individual with a substance use issue that does not have an underlying mental health issue, whether it be trauma, undiagnosed mental illness, and it comes hand in hand. But unfortunately, when it comes with substance use, if we think there's an issue with the mental health component, at least with an order, with an emergency detention, they're there for 3 days. When it comes to substance use, it's 100% voluntary. So an individual can go, walk in, says, you know what, I feel better, leave, come back in 3 weeks. So that's a little bit of the flaw that we have, where we can't
challenge
hold
that
them
you'll
there.
have. Let's take a quick break real quick and come back to, because what we really want to address now is okay, so we know it's broken. How do we fix it? You know, am I my brother's keeper, or is it the government that's our keeper? We'll come back and we'll address that.
help you get back to living a pain-free life.
We have a 9-acre facility, 200,000 square feet of indoor storage, as well as about 4 to 5 acres of outdoor storage. Pricing is subject to change based on your selection of either indoor or outdoor availability.
Life is full of great moments, special moments, shared with friends, family, and loved ones. But for some, pain deprives us from fully enjoying these moments. If chronic pain is keeping you from fully enjoying life, there is hope. Hi, I'm Dr. Marta Martinez. At Advanced Spine Pain Solutions, we're dedicated to treating our patients with the most advanced and compassionate care possible. Visit us for an evaluation and let our experienced staff help you get back to living a pain-free life.
Welcome back to Three Men and a Mic with our guest, Erica Lopez from the City of Laredo's Health Department, and Manuel Manny Sanchez from Pillar, and of course our host, Joe Barron, Javi Montemayor, myself. You know, we were talking about mental health. That's the hot topic that we've got. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. And we are recognizing that we have a broken system. And the question that we were talking about as we were heading out was, well, how do we fix it? We know it's broken. We all know it's broken. But how do we fix it? What's the solution?
It starts with the representatives at the federal level recognizing that there is a crisis, no different than the response provided during the COVID pandemic, right? We need to look at this as exactly that and have them look at financial resources to then pass through the states and have the states effectively regulate the usage of those funds to really try to cover as much ground to help as many people as possible. But that's kind of like a pipe dream because it's easier said than done. So I always like to talk to people, what do you have most control over? Which are your thoughts, your actions, and your behaviors. Like the old adage, the apple a day keeps the doctor away. There's 4 areas as a person, if you really target, you can stave off mental health challenges, or if you're already going through them, you can manage them better. One is the most powerful organ in our body is our brain. It needs to get proper rest. So you need to make sure you average at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night so that you can function as effectively as possible. Secondly, exercise. Exercise has a lot of value, including producing endorphins, natural opioids in the body, the ones that are legal. Take advantage of that. They really do help boost your confidence level, your self-esteem, your mood, and if you see results you want physically, that helps as well. Thirdly, and this is the one people tend to just let go by the wayside, we need to disconnect from our daily stress. If we do not do that, we're doing ourselves a huge disservice, and a lot of that comes from social connectedness. A lot of youth, especially males, right now, they recently did a national poll, and males between the ages of 20 and 35, I believe, can't even mention one good friend that they have in their life. That's concerning. Wow. And then the last piece is avoid the misuse of of alcohol and the use of drugs. That'll only make things more complicated for you.
But from a perspective of the government, the city's doing, they've got a detox center, I think now, or that's the county.
No, city.
The city. And then the county has something that they're doing as well. And of course the state does what they can. How do we address that where, again, we've got a shortage of providers, we don't have enough awareness out there. I know the city and AHEC and others are doing 988 campaigns and suicide crisis hotlines. But at the end of the day, we've got our fingers in the dike, so to speak. There's no way to stem the flow of what's happening. And now add to it, Javi, social media. And what our kids are going through with social media, their inability to disconnect. Heck, I'm in this industry, and this is what this is my lifeline here. I spend 8-9 hours a day on this thing. Now I may not be looking at it all the time, but it's on.
Right.
And my social media is open because I'm checking my clients' social media feeds and posts and stuff. But how do you disconnect?
This century is the era of social media, otherwise known as the social web. Since 1966, there were so many mass shootings. Up until this century, those have more than doubled. And it's the introduction of social media that a lot of the scientists and experts say is largely responsible for what we're seeing, because the algorithms breed hatred, anger, people are isolated, they're left to manage and regulate their own emotions because they don't have any social connectedness. And we're seeing a lot of what we see in terms of
In our kids,
violence.
it's dominating our kids.
And we have to be realistic. Social media isn't going anywhere.
No.
It's not going anywhere.
AI is coming in.
It's coming in. Unfortunately, do not use ChatGPT as a therapist because a lot of people are using it, and unfortunately, social media isn't going anywhere. So we kind of have to use it to our advantage, and it's something that I tell a lot of people. COVID taught us that people like alone time, and that's completely fine. But now after COVID, we did see that there's a lot of virtual support groups. And even 988, you don't have to talk to the person. You can text, you can chat, English, Spanish, 24/7. So a lot of individuals are able to express themselves a lot more by texting than there are by telephone call, especially some of our younger population. And you guys mentioned it earlier, the algorithm. If you surround yourself with, just see a couple of videos on TikTok and just positivity, that'll flood into it. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to beat it. We're not going to be able to distance the youth from it realistically, because there's more social media platforms coming out every year, all the time. So it's using it to our advantage, unfortunately, and spreading that message, spreading awareness, encouraging people to follow positive pages, whether it be Pillar. Pillar's very active on their social media page. So with Laredo Public Health, SCAN, UISD has also been posting a lot recently regarding all the events that they're doing. So it's just following the right people, unfortunately, virtually now, because social media isn't going anywhere.
We had a really good presentation last Wednesday, by the Lyndon B. Johnson student advisory group. Really impressive presentation on mental health, and they had every high school had a fair, so to speak, where they invited other students and other clubs to come in, and they all talked about mental health. But it was more of an awareness. It was more of a open dialogue. A get away from the embarrassment or the shutting down, and talk to somebody. Trying to prevent suicide, or just recognize some of the that you're not alone, that you can talk and find counselors. In fact, we were talking about our counselors at United ISD, and a lot of times they are so wrapped up with their administrative duties that it's very difficult to have them sit down with students and do some counseling if there's a need.
Absolutely, Javi, and I'll say this. I've had the luxury of talking to a lot of city leaders, county leaders, elected officials. They all care, but it boils down to economics.
Right.
And I'm not involved in the discussions when it comes to city or county budgets, so I can't speak to that. But I know what I get in return when I plead to these leaders to do more in terms of funding so we can grow these services. It does boil down to lack of resources. So what needs to happen? Employers like UISD, and I know UISD has been under the microscope because of funding issues, but I have to give you all kudos for having the foresight to partner with Pillar to provide access to your personnel to mental health services. Everybody worries in this day and age that there's threats outside the campus walls, and they exist. But sometimes those threats are already within the campus because you have an employee that's not emotionally stable, has substance use issues, and bad things can happen. And you all had the foresight to create this wellness program for your employees. And now they have access to these services, so parents and students can take some comfort that if there is an issue with an employee, there's access for them to get help. So kudos to you, your peers on the board, and the administrators at UISD for embracing this partnership.
I appreciate that. And we even, as part of, sometimes, we can't afford, because of funding issues, can't afford to give that little extra raise, but we do, provide mental health days,
Right.
Well, we had been providing mental health days for a lot of our employees.
No, and
So-
unfortunately, like I mentioned, on a personal level, I know 2 of the LPCs at UISD from LBJ and United South, and it's something that I mentioned. It's very difficult for one person to be not only at main campus but ninth grade campus, all the middle schools and all the elementary schools.
Yeah.
And they care. I know them both personally. They care so much about doing their best and being there for each student. And unfortunately, a lot of the times the students don't know. When Laredo Public Health does get invited to a lot of the events, we always say yes to UISD, to LISD, Laredo College, TAMIU, because it is important to let them know what services are available. And that is something that we notice a lot with UISD, that being there for, I believe it was a book signing, and it was speaking with the author at LBJ. In those 3 hours, I think I spoke to 3 individuals who were going through mental health crisis that 15-year-olds should not be going through. Yeah. And they didn't know they had an LPC available. So it's taking advantage of those resources.
And looking at those 3 cases, for example, how many of those are unresolved traumas, things that have happened and they've just not had anybody to talk to? Mm-hmm. I mean, you talked about wanting to get more people into therapy. Mm-hmm. I'm a boomer, so mm-hmm. I grew up in that generation where that's not what you talk about. You told your dad you were depressed, you probably got a whipping out of it, or hey, let's go outside, put you to work, and you're going to work it out. One of the coaches used to tell us, just walk it off. Basically the same thing, just walk it off. So it's hard for a lot of us older parents, but my kids have kids, and so mm-hmm. they're more in tune with it, and there is an openness to it now, mm-hmm. right? It doesn't have the same stigma as it did before, but how do you get them there?
Stigma is still an issue, and so we've reached out on many occasions to local law enforcement and first responders. They do appreciate the value of these services, but they worry about if it's found out that they're seeking these services, it may be used against them for promotions, or even if they're fit for duty or not. That's a systems issue that is fueled by stigma that is very difficult to eradicate. You can do all these campaigns, you can have all these presentations, but it's so ingrained. So it's challenging because it's generational beliefs mm-hmm. that just get passed on. But progress has been made. Mm-hmm. I feel very optimistic that within the next 10 years, everybody's concerned about AI developments and those kinds of issues. But humanistic values are still being embraced, and the focus is still where it needs to be, finding resources to give people more access to these critical healthcare resources.
Did you hear about that one case? I think it was a student at, was it A&M? Where it was 2 or 3 in the morning, and he started a conversation with ChatGPT. And by 5 o'clock in the morning, ChatGPT was saying, well, it's about that time. Maybe you can pull that Colt 45. The Colt 45 to the temple of your head.
Really?
Oh, wow.
The guy committed suicide with the help of...
After having a discussion with AI.
With AI. With ChatGPT.
Yeah, these systems are not regulated.
No.
They're not.
And if you see ChatGPT, I mean, it always agrees with you.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Oh, that's a great idea.
Not necessarily. When I've had my bouts with ChatGPT and Claude and some of the others, where
mm-hmm.
I push back and say that's not the correct answer. So and so, there's a historical marker that says this, and it'll push back. But one of the things that I was listening to, and I listened to Father Mike Schmidt mm-hmm. and Bishop Barron, the 2 folks that I follow on Ascension Press. They tell you, don't treat this AI like a person. It is a machine. Mm-hmm. It has no feeling for you. Mm-hmm. Don't engage it. Don't say please. Don't say thank you. Don't treat it like a reference book.
Absolutely. Your best defense against AI influences is use your own critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
But the other question I had, and this is the one that, we were watching a video earlier, right? And we mm-hmm. saw that. How do you tell when someone is going through that? When you have examples of folks like Robin Williams, right. happy and a great comic. you couldn't see through his laughter all the pain that he was going through and the things that he was worried about, the diagnosis he had received, and all the things that are out there in the internet about how and why he may have chosen that path. How do you do that?
I'm sure Erica can agree with this statement. People that suffer from some mood disorder, let's focus on a depressive disorder, they all have the same message to tell. They wear masks. So when somebody wears a mask, they're covering their actual feelings, their affect, so you don't see it. And that's a misnomer. People think that there are signs. They're not always signs. Sometimes people get blown away from what happens because there was nothing for them to be able to determine that the person was struggling with a mood disorder.
And my approach is treat everybody like they're having mental health struggles every day. And that way it's not, you don't want, I think I always say, like, your biggest fear is, oh, well, they didn't look like they were struggling. And you any little thing, you can attack them for it and it'll push them over the edge. So I always tell my team, like, you have to see everybody that everybody has their own struggles. Everybody has their own mental health struggles, so treat every single individual like that, because you never know, you might be that one person that saves them by talking to them, or you could push them over the edge.
You know, and one of the biggest, I guess, difficulties for a lot of people is that the generational gap. You know, when we were growing up, we was treated a lot differently. You know, go for a run, you know, go work out, and a lot of times what we tend to do is compartmentalize a lot of things. For example, you know, I'm a lawyer, I have to be in court every day and I have to represent. Whether I'm having a bad day or whether I'm having a mental breakdown or you know, whatever reason, I've got to continue. And so when dealing with younger generations, you know, it just, a lot of times it's not something I'm used to. So that communication between the two generations is what needs to be worked on.
But you know, Javi, the real value comes from the person that recognizes that they have shortcomings, being able to pass the baton to someone who may have the skill set to then help that individual. It doesn't have to be about us saving everybody.
Right.
It's about us recognizing if there is somebody in need, let's find the resources to get that person help.
Because we also pass on that generational trauma. I mean, we're talking about the stigmas, but a lot of the time, it's the trauma that goes just from one generation to the other. I was reading a book that us Hispanic females in particular, we have a trauma with cleaning. Because, like, our abuelitas would tell you, like, it has to be spotless. And no, you pressure yourself, you get anxious over it. So it's little things that we might not recognize it, but it could be a trauma. It could be a trigger for somebody, because we do have so many generational traumas. And I say, when I talk to the individuals in DC, I tell them, I always tell our participants, you're going to go ahead and take your medication, do therapy. But if you think that doing a barrida with the huevo is also going to help, then do it. It's not harming anybody. Just keep on taking your medications, keep going to therapy, because it's one of the beauties of our culture, and we're not going to change that either.
True.
So I just tell them, like, as long as, if you believe that's going to help you, it's the same thing. I tell them, you can have Jesus and a therapist. We're not telling you to choose, but just do what's best for you, because mental health is not the same for everybody, just like coping skills and therapy and recovery is not the same for everybody. So I tell them, if you think a huevo is going to help you, then do it. Like, you're not harming anybody, but take your meds and go to therapy.
I was a witness to Erica cleaning your desk, James. Yes.
All good vibes.
Just
All
sort
good
everything
vibes.
out for me.
Well, yeah. For me, it's more of you know, when I'm dealing with a younger client, and they come in with some, you know, situation, and I'm over here trying to give them that, like, look, man, you know, quit your, you know, let's grow up, let's get it done, and you need to follow these rules. And sometimes that's where the communication between the older generation, it doesn't recognize, you know, what they may be going through, and that tends to be the disconnect.
But it's good that you recognize that. The problem is when the person doesn't, and they still continue to impress their will against others.
And one of the things, going back to what you said, right, like, what can we do? What do we recognize, right?
Yeah.
So I can honestly say that on a weekly basis, I probably have a circle of about 15 people that I talk to regularly. And I have a habit that if I go to a store and I pay something, I go, oh, thank you, man, God bless, and I walk away.
Sure.
Sometimes people freak out because you said God bless. Like, you know, people, some people say it back, Some people don't, but they look at you funny for saying God bless you, right? Or I call Javi once, I think, and I said, hey Javi, how you doing, man? You okay? But that's just my question,
Yeah.
right? And I check, I do that with almost everybody, but I don't do it because of anything. It's just
Right.
I've done it for a very long time, right? So I think if you have that circle of friends or that circle of family that you talk to all the time, that simple question, hey man, you okay? How you doing, man? Hey Gene, you okay today?
Yeah.
You know,
That's the stress reliever, right?
you know, and you know, it's been very few times when somebody goes, gee, I'm having a bad day, right?
Yeah.
But the simple fact that you ask might be that one
Sure.
phone call, right? So I think if you reach out to your people on a daily basis, your wife, your son, your friends, your coworkers or whatever, and you ask that, I mean, I think that's a start, man, because
It is. I mean,
The human touch,
there's so much to be said for the human touch. You know, I'm working on writing a book about social media, and it's the rise of weapons of mass distraction. You know, the war on the human connection, because that's
Yeah.
really what it is.
Yeah.
Social media and all the electronics, it's a war on the human connection. I can go to a restaurant, I can see a family that loves each other. I know they do. I know the family, but they're all on their phone. They're not
Yeah.
even talking to each other. They're not breaking bread together. They're not sharing the experience of the food. Nothing.
And I'm sure you can appreciate, Gene, that everybody blames the companies that put out the social media algorithms, but it starts with the home environment and who is the your adult figure, a parent, a guardian, whomever it is. It's their responsibility. It's not these businesses that are doing what they've intended to do.
What they intend to do. I mean, it's hard for me to blame M&M for my figure, so it just is.
And going back to United, that was one of the things when I first started on the school board. I was adamant that we introduce technology into our classrooms, to recapture the attention, of the student. Things weren't being done with the pencil and the paper, with the chalkboard, and they weren't done the old school way. But as I've gone through the years on the school board, I realized that it's a double-edged sword. It was a double-edged sword because now to recapture the attention of our kids, just to have a conversation, just to sit at the table, just to be able to have a conversation one-on-one, face-to-face, it's deteriorating.
Well, you see the anxiety and the disconnection from the phone, right? When they don't have when they're
yeah.
You know,
Or you don't have internet or Wi-Fi,
Right.
forget it.
We did our Acts retreat, right? And of course, you lose your phone as you go in, and somewhere a day in or so, I'm reaching for my pocket because I feel my phone vibrating. I don't have it. It's a phantom phone, like the phantom limb. You feel it, but it's not there. But that's how connected we are to those devices. And I'll be
you lose it, you go crazy. You
Yeah.
don't know phone numbers
That's
anymore.
right.
Back
The
in the day,
anxiety.
you remember the phone number. Now,
Oh, no.
now I don't know anybody's number.
Even if you just set it on the table and you're having a discussion, you can see the anxiety in your child's face that they want to get to their phone because who knows who's texting or what post they just put out and see what kind of
How many likes they got.
Or what
clicks
they're
and
missing
likes,
out
what they're
on,
missing
because
out.
you'll just miss out completely on life itself. And it's
Yeah.
something that we've seen a lot, like in high schools when I go and I talk. I'm a proud alumni of LBJ, and I tell them, like, I go and give mental health presentations. I went to their mental health event this month, and I tell them, like, I love giving back, I love coming here, but I'm gonna be honest, my anxiety started in these hallways. And I was 16, I was like, and this is where it started. And people stay afterwards, and oftentimes it's a lot of those valedictorians, those top 10 that put on that extra stress,
Those high achievers that put it on
that
themselves.
you'll think, well, they're fine, they're already going into college, there's nothing to worry about. And I tell them, like, guys, it's normal. A lot of them don't know what anxiety is, which is surprising to me. And I was like, I didn't know when I was here, but it exists. It's gonna happen, and I'm gonna be honest, it's gonna get worse in college. It is.
But I'm guilty of some of those reasons, and I use myself as an example. I tell my kids, what do you have to be worried about? I've got a mortgage, I've got bills, I've got health care issues and things that parents that have passed. So you go through the litany of things. Your house is, you've got a free roof over your head. You've got a car to drive. You're fed. You're warm at night. You don't have any of these worries. Why are you so anxious about tomorrow?
I equate it with this, like, growing up, it was not uncommon for me to hear, eat your food because there's people starving in Africa, right? That had no value. It didn't make me hungrier. It didn't make the food taste better. Same thing, you can tell younger people, what do you have to worry about? You don't have these life issues to deal with. But they're disconnected from that.
Sure.
Their world is what's impacting them.
Absolutely.
And unless we connect with them at their level, there's
The wires get crossed
the
and they stay
wires just
crossed.
get crossed.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
And I'll tell you this, it's an amazing thing that you do when you call, because I had an experience with someone who called me once right in the middle of when I was having just one of those days when you just think, okay, I've had all I can take for one day. And the question was, hey, what's going on over there? That was it. That was the call. What's going on over there? And just at that moment it was, I'm glad you called. Let's go get a beer. Okay.
Yeah.
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 That social connectedness,
Yeah.
right?
Now I say everybody should have a friend like that.
Absolutely.
That calls you just out of the blue. And there's that connection.
And one who pays.
I was
And-
going to say,
oh,
yeah,
and
they
one
pick
who
up the
pays, even
tab.
better.
The one that picks
Yeah.
up the tab.
But that's a life-saving call, believe it or not. I mean, it could be that moment when that person is at their edge of their rope, and that phone call
And
says,
sadly, a lot of people don't have that.
But that's also where 988 comes in. Like, it's very, if you do not all of us have that friend. I'm very fortunate to have a strong group of friends that all work in mental health, and we just support each other, and we know the importance of a check-in. But if you don't have that, 988 is available. Like I mentioned, younger generations, they just text, chat. It's a lot easier than reaching out to somebody.
Right.
Right off
so
the bat.
what do we do when the system fails us? We've had a couple issues here locally where the system failed the individual. There's one in particular that you and I know about, Manny, where they made the phone call, and the situation only got worse. It was one of these 5150 type situations where they swore they were gonna, if that person didn't do what they were gonna do, they were gonna handcuff her and take her in, and she was gonna be detained for a month. They were telling her all these things that weren't accurate. The system was failing them at that point. Luckily, they happened to reach out to someone, a medical professional, who said, no, that's not the way that works.
Right.
Let me fix it. And they were able to get out of that situation. But the system often fails these folks, and you find them in mass shootings, you find them in, suicides, and just things of that nature.
And Erica said it earlier, you re-traumatize the individual. If we're already dealing with a system that's not functioning at an optimal level, you're going to have those moments, right?
And reality is scary enough as it is. You don't need to lie to scare the person realistically. I mean, psych hospitals are not a pretty place. They're not a pretty place to be at. Going, unfortunately, with our system, since we don't have anything local, going in a police car like a criminal to one of these hospitals 2.5 hours away, minimum 3 days, being away from everything you're used to, it's not easy. It's not the easy way out. It's not what we often hear. It's like, oh, it's a chiflazon, which is the thing I hate the most, because it's not. It's very difficult to go to these places.
But that's our culture.
That's our culture.
And we live, and you can appreciate this, Javi, we live in a litigious world. And so everybody's very scared. So sometimes you go that extra mile when it's not necessary, because you don't want it coming back, impacting you in a negative way.
True. Great discussion.
Wow.
Been a great discussion. So a couple things before we kind of wrap up. Numbers to call, places to go. What's available to us here in Laredo?
At Pillar, our number is 956-723-PILR or 7457. We don't have a crisis unit, but if you call within our hours of operation, Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, we will make sure we do our best to get people in. And if we cannot help them under the Pillar roof, our people are trained to provide linkages to our partners to then help them. It's always about just being there to listen to someone when they need it.
Yes, and with Laredo Public Health, you can go ahead and call our mental health unit directly. It's 956-679-0722. Again, we don't have the crisis unit, but we work very closely with our mental health department for the police department to go ahead and work hand in hand. If unfortunately we can't meet your needs, we go ahead and talk to you. I've talked to people for 4 hours on the phone to try to determine what their needs are. There's also Border Region Behavioral Health Center, which is our local mental health authority that treats children and adults. We also have SCAN, which is a great program with a lot of resources. Mercy Clinic is also available. Gateway Behavioral Health Center is also available. So AHEC is also
Dr.
available.
Zubasov.
UISD is also available for everybody. So there is a lot of resources in the community. It's just finding that right fit.
Great.
And reminding everybody it's still not enough.
It's still not enough.
Talk
But
to
you're not
somebody.
alone.
Talk
That's the
to
other thing to
somebody.
remind everybody that they're not alone.
Right, and you don't have to talk to a mental health professional. Anybody who's a good listener, that person's a keeper.
So we've got a great discussion with Erica Lopez from the City of Laredo's Health Department, with Manny from Pillar, and as always, we close our show with the last bite is our last segment. So we're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about something sweet.
Talk about.
Life is full of great moments, special moments, shared with friends, family, and loved ones. But for some, pain deprives us from fully enjoying these moments. If chronic pain is keeping you from fully enjoying life, there is hope. Hi, I'm Dr. Marta Martinez. At Advanced Spine Pain Solutions, we're dedicated to treating our patients with the most advanced and compassionate care possible. Visit us for an evaluation and let our experienced staff help you get back to living a pain-free life.
We have a 9-acre facility, 200,000 square feet of indoor storage, as well as about 4 to 5 acres of outdoor storage. Pricing is subject to change based on your selection of either indoor or outdoor availability.
Life is full of great moments, special moments, shared with friends, family, and loved ones. But for some, pain deprives us from fully enjoying these moments. If chronic pain is keeping you from fully enjoying life, there is hope. Hi, I'm Dr. Marta Martinez. At Advanced Spine Pain Solutions, we're dedicated to treating our patients with the most advanced and compassionate care possible. Visit us for an evaluation and let our experienced staff help you get back to living a pain-free life.
And so we're back, and as you can see, we're in the middle of cutting a cake. So the last bite, the segment is, where are the best places to get dessert? Not necessarily just cake or pastries, but dessert, overall desserts in Laredo, Texas. Manny?
In Laredo, I love the pistachio cake at Noble.
Really?
Not only is it visually appealing, but it tastes extremely well. Very moist. You can taste the pistachio. It's very good. Delicious.
Never been
Erica?
We recently just tried the berry cheesecake from the pastry house. Amazing. So good.
Really?
So good.
Joe, I know your favorite place. Tell
Yeah.
me.
Postreria, I think it's called.
Posteria? Uh-huh. Is that who is the provider of this
This
cake?
is the provider of this cake today.
Posteria, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love the desserts, from cakes to cheesecakes. They have very good breakfast.
I gotta say, this is probably some of the best cakes that I've had in a long time. When we went, I was there last week with you guys, and you know, and I have my go-tos. You know, I have, you know, wherever there's good coffee, you know, and wherever there's good food. And I don't really switch, but we went to Postreria last week, and you know, it was extremely delicious. So
Well, there's a rumor out there you shouldn't cheat on your pastry chef. Should never, they come out of the kitchen with their knife, you're in trouble. For me, it's Cherry's Jubilee at the tack room, done
Really?
tableside.
Wow.
Those
From
guys-
your days at La Posada.
For my days at La Posada and other places, and I'm the kind of guy that once I like something, then I've got to have it somewhere else to test to see whether that is really as good as it is. And so there are places in San Antonio I like going to. Baklava is one of the places that I like going to in San Antonio. Any place out of town?
Southerly's at the Pearl. Good reason to go
Yeah.
visit my nephew there. They have great carrot cake. And if you really want to witness a great sunset and enjoy a great chocolate tres leches, is at the Oasis at Lake Travis.
Yeah, Lake Travis.
Austin, yeah,
Yeah,
been there.
you get the visual and the taste. Yeah,
I didn't
Good.
have the dessert, but you know, the margaritas were
there you go.
pretty good.
That could be dessert, right?
It could be, yeah.
That's a topic for another day.
That's
right?
the other one. That's
Any place out of town you'd like to go
I
to?
personally like the sweeper from La Panaderia in San Antonio.
Oh, yeah.
You can't go wrong
Oh,
with
you
it.
can't
It
go
has
wrong with that, right?
The conchas are just amazing from there.
One of the things I do whenever I come back from San Antonio, I stop at the last Bill Miller's, and I get either the
Pecan
lemon
pie.
pie, their lemon pie,
Uh-huh.
or their pecan pie.
yeah.
They're pecan pie.
The pecan pie.
You, delicious, man.
Cow
Delicious.
pokes
Yeah.
too in Pearsall. Great pecan pie.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, if they haven't gone to Postreria, I highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
Try
They've
it.
got some great stuff there. My favorite place out of town is the Swedish Hill on 6th Street.
Really.
At the tail end of 6th Street on the west end, there's a bakery called the Swedish Hill. They have a blueberry pie that is out of this world.
Really.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of blueberry pie.
Really?
There's a story to it, but that's a story for another day with blueberry pie.
Nice.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Great discussion.
And
Thank
it was
you.
a great
Appreciate the
discussion.
invitation.
Thank you for
guys.
having us. Yes.
And the episode is out live, but we'll continue to promote it, and hopefully people will chime in and give us, some feedback, and also reach out if they need help. We definitely, you have 988. We have all the services available at Pillar, at the City of Laredo, the county, AHEC, Border Region, and other places that they can go to. If you need help, ask for help.
Talk to somebody.
Talk to somebody.
Hopefully, you'll visit us again.
And I
sometime.
hope
Oh,
everybody
I
has
love
a
that.
course.
And keep doing the great work. We need conversations like this.
Absolutely. This one wasn't as contested as some of the other ones we were having, although
Yeah.
early on it could have turned into a contested conversation.
We didn't talk about Republicans
elections.
versus Democrats. That's-
And props, having four men talking about mental health, it's something that you don't see very often.
Right.
So that will hopefully open up some
Hopefully so.
conversation.
It's if you want to get somebody to a mental health provider, it takes a woman. It really does.
Oh, yeah.
It takes a woman.
And we were worried that it was going to take a wrong turn, so we have Deacon sitting in our audience in case it got bad, right? But no blows, so it's okay.
Well, I tell everybody should have a friend like Henry.
That's right.
Everybody should have a friend like Henry.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. 3 Men and a Mic. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and I think the discussion then is there God?
Yeah.
And if so,
Does
which
God
one?
exist?
Does God exist? And if so, which one? That's going to be a topic. We'll have someone who is a non-believer who's going to be sitting in, and I think it's going to be a eye-opening conversation. So thank you again for joining us, and have a great night. Don't forget to go to Postreria.
That's right.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.